Dubai, a very beautiful city located in the heart of the United Arab Emirates, a city known for its luxury shopping and wide nightlife, the playground for millionaires and billionaires alike. But do you know the extent of dark things that happens in Dubai? Welcome, my darlings. If you're seeing me for the first time, my name is Annie and I post true crime cases here on my channel. Today we are looking into the disturbing way a young Nigerian student allegedly fell from the balcony of his 15-story apartment in Dubai. This is the case of Toba Falode. Toba Falode was a Nigerian sent to study in Dubai, an opportunity he was so grateful for. He was the only son of a single parent, Aisha Falode, who was a very popular sport journalist at the time and currently the president of the Nigerian Women Football League. So Toba was born on the 20th of May 1994 and he grew up to become quite a young man, a very goofy and lovable young man, full of smiles and mischief. His mother describes him as a very loving boy, very trusting, too friendly perhaps. He was very giving and open-minded. There was just that thing about him that attracted people to him. He went by the name Tyler Frey on social media. All his close friends and family knew him by that name. And his sister Tolu, she adored him so very much. They were a very super close-knit family. It all began on the 15th of February 2014. It was a Saturday, a day after Valentine's Day. Toba was in Dubai like I mentioned earlier. That's where he lived and went to school at SAE Institute where he was studying audio production. His mother had allowed him come over to the School of Audio Engineering to study because of his passion towards audio production. Being far away from home at such a young age, Toba's mom Aisha made it her duty to call very frequently to check up on her son. So she called Toba on his cell on Friday, which was Valentine's Day, and he was his usual jolly good self, very happy, all smiles, cracking jokes with his mom. He actually was on his way from church. Usually, church services in Dubai held on Friday, so everything seemed to be okay and fine. Fast forward to about 5 minutes past 3 a.m. on the 15th, being Saturday, Aisha was home in Nigeria sleeping. She was pressed in the middle of the night and got up to use the bathroom. Just as she returned to her bed and was about to lay down, her cell phone began to ring. Tired and sleepy, she thought to just ignore the call at first. I mean, who would be calling her at that odd hour? As she grabbed the phone to at least put off the ringer, she caught a glimpse of the number calling and it was an international number with the UAE code. Immediately, her heart drops. Her son Toba lived in Dubai, and if anyone was trying to reach her at this odd hour from Dubai, then it wasn't going to be anything good. That was what she had at the back of her mind. She picks up the call anyways, and the person from the other end goes, "This is what I've been saying about your son and his friends." Before she could ask any further questions, the line goes off. Within that few seconds of call, she could pick up chaos and lots of activities happening in the background, like there was some kind of commotion going on. So she tried to call the number right back to know exactly what the issue was. She knew who the number belonged to though. It was a security man of Nigerian descent that she had met at Toba's apartment building when she went to visit him in Dubai. But the security man was no longer picking up his call, and this got Aisha seriously worried. Something serious must have happened for him to try to contact her, but to just go off like that, it didn't make sense. It got her so confused and panicky, so she thought of who next to contact. Now she knew of a very close friend of her son. Toba had always told her he was his best friend. He was a South African guy, and Toba had at a point sent his number to his mom just in case she tries to reach him at any point in time and she couldn't get him. His mother was to call his South African friend because they were kind of like together almost all the time. But first, Aisha dials her son's phone number and it didn't connect. She then tries Toba's best friend's number and it goes through. The time was exactly 10 minutes past 3 a.m. at this point. Toba's friend picks up the phone and the first thing Aisha says to him was, "Where is Tyler?" He goes, "I'm sorry ma, he passed." What does it mean he passed? It didn't make sense to Aisha at first. She was screaming and asking so many questions at the same time. It was like she couldn't breathe and her entire world seemed to be caving in. Toba's best friend went on to tell her that he had fallen down from the balcony of his apartment building. It had happened just a few minutes prior and he had called the ambulance and they were on their way. Aisha understood that the worst had happened. She was in pain. Toba was her only son from a failed marriage and he was her best friend. What would she not do without him? And how could she relay this news to Toba's sister Tolu? She was shaking with a broken heart, but she had to get it together and figure out what to do next. Toba's friend did call back later in the day that he had Toba's cell phone with him and he wanted to know when Aisha would be able to make it to Dubai. Meanwhile, everyone who had been there when Toba allegedly fell off the balcony had been taken to the police station to give a statement. We'll get into the details of all of that shortly. So, according to the Dubai police, Toba had been sitting on the rail on the balcony with his friend, a young girl called Olivia, who is British, and allegedly Toba had been swinging on the rail, and Olivia had warned him to stop doing that because it was dangerous, but Toba didn't heed to her warnings and kept swinging. She leaves him out there and goes back into the apartment for a bit, and by the time she returns outside, Toba was nowhere to be found. It was moments later she discovered he had fallen off the balcony. Therefore, the COD was ruled as accidental. Lest I forget, they said Toba had alcohol in his system way above the legal limit and this might have contributed to the fall. Now, when Aisha heard this report, immediately her antennas go up. She knew for a fact that all that was being said was a lie, and we'll get into that very shortly. In the meantime, it was family members who flew from Nigeria to Dubai to bring home Toba's remains. Aisha was just not in the right frame of mind to make that trip, but she demanded that they return with a full report of the investigations that had been done and also the witness statements and medical reports because she felt like things were not adding up. The police in Dubai were not willing to give this report out unless the request came through the Nigerian embassy. The Nigerian embassy did send a request and everyone waited for the Dubai police to respond. But meanwhile, on the 3rd of March 2014, amidst tears and heartbreak, Toba Falode was laid to rest in his home country of Nigeria. So now to the reason why Aisha felt like there was more to her son falling off the balcony as claimed by the Dubai police. She had been to Toba's apartment building severally, and according to her, there is absolutely no way that an individual can sit on that rail, talk more of swinging on it. It wasn't even built that way. It's a very small apartment and the balcony was just as tiny. The rail wasn't in a way that it can be sat on, you know what I mean? Aside this, there were 5 individuals in that apartment at the time of the incident. There was Olivia, then Toba's South African friend was there. There was Fazal, a future rich Saudi Arabian whose dad had heavy investment in Dubai. There was Joaquin Centene, a French Canadian, and then Toba himself. But the police had made it look like nobody saw Toba fall off that balcony. The Dubai police had said that the 4 other persons were interviewed and that their accounts of events were all the same. Thus, that Toba had been swinging on the rails when he fell off, so they didn't see any reason to further investigate the incident as it was just straightforward. But when Aisha finally made it to Dubai with her attorney, what she found out was very different from what she and the rest of her family had been told by the Dubai police all this while. This is the point where things began to look like there had been some sort of cover-up. Aisha, when she got to Dubai, contacted Toba's best friend, the South African guy, through his mother, and they met up. He was the person who opened up to Aisha that Toba had been having issues with one of the guys who was present at the time of the incident, the one from Saudi Arabia, that's Fazal. The cause of the tension was the British girl Olivia, whom Fazal had been dating at the time. The tension between them was so high that it led to a physical altercation a couple of months prior. That should be in December of 2013. I think Toba did not like the way Fazal treated Olivia, who was also his friend, but Fazal felt like Toba should not involve himself in his relationship, and that was what the altercation was all about. Aside this, Fazal had also in December of 2013 accused Olivia of cheating on him with Toba. Now, nobody knows if this was true because they were all like a clique of friends, but Toba denied this and Olivia too said this wasn't true. After the fight in December, they talked about it and it seemed everything had been sorted out. But then on Valentine's Day, February the 14th, the group of friends were at a club and Fazal began to argue with Olivia over something the rest of the crew did not know about. The two eventually left the club together, never to return. But when Toba and the others returned to his apartment by the early hours of the morning, Toba was shocked to meet Fazal and Olivia by his doorsteps. He thought they had gone to their own apartment, so why were they at his? Everyone noticed at this point that Olivia had been crying and, she was in some sort of distress, but no one knew exactly what the issue was, apart from the fact that she had gotten into a fight with her Saudi boyfriend earlier. Toba opens the door, lets everyone in, including the two. Then he invited Fazal and Olivia to his bedroom to help sort out whatever it was that was causing their problems. He just wanted to mediate and make peace between them, So after a while, the three took their conversation to the balcony, while the South African and the French Canadian were left in the sitting room just relaxing and listening to music. The next time these two would see Olivia and Fazal enter back into the apartment from the balcony, it was to tell them that Toba had fallen from the balcony. Shocked, they all ran to the balcony and Toba was really not there. But they noticed something that wasn't making sense. So Fazal didn't have any injuries when they saw him first earlier at the door, but when he came in to say Toba had fallen off, he had bruises on his knuckles and there was blood splatter on the t-shirt he was putting on, so where did that come from? Plus, in the midst of the confusion and all of that, Fazal was telling them, "Don't worry, I got this covered, I will just go for 25 years maximum and I will get out, it's no big deal." Mind you, at this point, no one was understanding what he was talking about or why he felt like he was going to jail for 25 years. But Aisha, when she heard this, she knew exactly why. Fazal must have pushed Toba off the balcony. But how was she going to prove it? When the police and ambulance arrived at the scene, the police first took Fazal aside and spoke with him in Arabic. They isolated him from the others during their interview, and his was done in Arabic, so they could not understand what was being asked or what he told them. Aisha specifically asked Toba's friend if this was the version of events that he gave to the police in his interview, and he and his mother answered in the affirmative. She said she was right there when Wakim and the others gave their statement, so why on earth did the Dubai police tell Toba's family that Toba had been swinging on the rails and that he was alone when he fell? And why did they, in the few minutes following the incident, call Fazal and Olivia's family to get them lawyers before their interview? Some things were not just making sense at this point. Toba's friend said there was no way it was true that he was alone. Olivia and Fazal were with Toba when he allegedly fell off that balcony. Aisha, being a journalist, knew she had to get all of this on paper, so the young man wrote all he had just narrated to her on paper, signed it and dated it. Aisha was not going to let it slide. She was going to fight for her son. Her son was going to get justice no matter the level of cover-up that was being done. She and her attorney went to Toba's apartment where the incident had taken place, but before then, she had another stop to make. A fellow Nigerian who lived in the apartment building and had witnessed what had happened had something to tell Aisha. So according to this Nigerian witness, he was inside the apartment when he heard raised voices at the balcony. He kind of like parted the curtains a bit to see what was happening and why voices were being raised, and then he saw Fazal's hands flying violently in the air like he was throwing a punch. He saw Toba standing. Toba was not sitting on any rail as claimed. He didn't intervene according to him because he thought they would just sort out their differences, but moments later, he heard Toba had fallen off the balcony. He also said that the location where Toba's body was found, it would not make any sense at all if he had fallen. Even though he wasn't a detective, it was clear he had been pushed with full force because of how far away from the building he had landed. If he had fallen off that balcony, he should have dropped kind of like vertically and landed just at the foot of the building, right? whereas Toba's body was found at about 15 meters away from the building, and they were saying he supposedly fell accidentally. Another friend of Toba's came forward to say immediately he heard of the incident, he went straight to the police station, and what he heard was that Olivia and Fazal were with Toba when he fell. He said he saw Fazal at the station with stains on his shirt, and he walked up to him to ask him how come about the red vital body fluids on his shirt, and Fazal told him he had gotten the stains while he was trying to pull up Toba when he was falling off the balcony. That now contradicts what the police had been saying all along. Fazal had just put himself at the location with Toba when he fell, but these police in Dubai were still insisting Toba was alone when he fell. It just didn't make sense. Why were they hiding the fact that Fazal and Olivia were with Toba when he fell? Why were they not taking into account the fact that the witnesses' statements were different? Why were they not taking the shirt with stains on it as vital evidence? Why? They just spoke to them in front of their lawyers and they let them go. Meanwhile, a condolence Facebook page was opened for Toba on the day he passed. Lots of his friends, his schoolmates, and people who knew him went there to drop their condolences, and this includes Olivia. She came up on the page and wrote, "R.I.P. I miss you forever. I am sorry I was not able to help you." End quote. Fazal goes off to Facebook and does something annoying. He posted a picture of Toba and Olivia together and writes, "R.I.P. Tyler." Why on earth would he do that? Did he not have a single picture of Toba to put up there? Would he not have just written what he needed to write without a picture? Or was he trying to pass a message? Aisha returns to Nigeria and she begins to fight for justice for her son. The Dubai police is state-run, so they would not deal with individuals, so she tried to get the Nigerian government to intervene and request for a thorough investigation, but it's not clear if the government followed through. Toba being thrown off their balcony and the secrecy and ups and downs that followed was something Aisha described as an emotional roller coaster, but she had to go through it to get peace and closure for herself and also justice for her son. But up to date, I don't think she had been able to get any of that. The Dubai police did eventually send the full investigation report Aisha had initially requested for through the embassy, but when she went through it, nothing was different from the initial report that he had given. But according to her, this time they couldn't even get Toba's name correctly. His apartment number was also not correct. This just showed that they didn't bother to investigate anything. Someone just wanted to put all that information together and send it to her so that she would stop asking. It's not the first time a Nigerian had passed away in Dubai under mysterious circumstances, and the police had treated the case the way they did Toba's case. There had been some cases before Toba, and since Toba's case, there have been more, and most times when the suspect comes from a rich Middle Eastern family, they get to walk away. Fazal, at a point in the few minutes that Toba had passed, had mentioned that this was his second friend to pass on. Even though people heard him, they didn't question how did the other friend pass away. Was there a developing pattern here? Why bring it up when Toba had just passed? Why did talk about going to jail for 25 years? Did anyone aside Toba's family even care that he made these comments? Of a truth, the Dubai police did not do a good job in this case. They did not even take pictures at the scene. The CCTV that covers the building all of a sudden was said to cover only the entrance of the building, but not the individual floors. And even at that, miraculously, they couldn't find the footage of when the friends went out and came in from the club that morning. If the cameras cover the entrance, they should be on tape coming in or going out, right? If you're familiar with the city of Dubai, you will know there are practically CCTVs everywhere, talk more of a very highbrow area such as Dubai Marina, where Toba's apartment was. Someone must have seen something, but no one was willing to say anything. This brings us to the visitor's logbook of the apartment building. Usually, as a non-resident, you sign in and out of the visitor's logbook when you pass through security posts, and the resident you're coming to visit must be home. So how did Fazal and Olivia get past the security post when it was clear Toba was not home? Not much could be said about this because the Pakistani security man who was on duty on the day of the incident got transferred from the building shortly afterwards. Tyler's demise was very devastating for his family. You can imagine sending your child to school in a place you think is safe, then you get sad news as this. And the authorities that are supposed to get you justice that you need are rather doing all they can to sabotage the investigations. Toba's sister Tolu had this to say, quote, "I feel justice was denied in the case of Toba's mother because the authorities never investigated the case properly. Even as I speak, the alleged murderers, according to eyewitnesses, still walk freely. That is the hardest part of what had happened, knowing that they have not faced the law even when they took a life. I struggle with that realization every day. Toba was very important to my family, and it pains me that his life was not valued by the UAE authorities who failed to properly look into the cause of his death. They still refuse to investigate this case even after being presented with compelling witness statements. But the Nigerian government, I have to say, was the worst. I don't think they value the lives of citizens at all. So many have passed on before and after my brother, and not one move of action has been taken by the government in any of these cases. It's a very shameful situation. My heart bleeds for the family of the lost that have gone through similar experiences because of the incompetency of the Nigerian government. I hope we have truly stepped into an era of change." End quote. So that's all I have for the unsolved case of Toba Falode. Let me know what your opinion is about this case. Remember to keep it respectful. And if this is your kind of content, please subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. Until next video, take care of you and your loved ones.